Welcome to another episode of Life in the Military Spouse Edition. And this month, we've been talking all about resiliency. And I know Ashley and I have been talking offline. We were like, okay, so when we think of the word resiliency, what comes to mind, right? And we've talked over military kids, also resiliency. And I told her, joking, but very much so in a serious thought process, that my first thought process is the analogy of the egg or the golf ball, and which one are you going to be? And I know that was something that I heard a million and one times while in the military, and from my husband, the leadership of like, how are we going to be? Are we going to be, the egg that just kind of splats, or are we going to be the bouncy ball or the golf ball that bounces? And I feel like there's lots of ways to take this, and it's one of my loved, less, and at the same time least loved analogies in the life of in the topic of resiliency, but also in the topic of like life and military life and all that. So Ash, what was your first thought when I said like this egg and golf ball thought process? What was your thoughts?
Well, actually, I never heard of it. So I learned about it from you. And so I didn't really have a first thought. I was more like, oh, what is that? And after you explained in relation to our military kids, they gonna splat or are they gonna bounce? Are they gonna like react and bounce forward or bounce back, or are they just going to fall flat? And so I really like the analogy when put it into perspective of our kids and to us in life. And it's one of those things that kind of keeps or made me kind of like put into perspective of, okay, looking back on everything that happened, watching Olivia and Nora through all of the change, all of the stuff, like there's so much a golf ball. There's so much you see. Have you ever seen something in slow motion, like any kind of object? It starts to compress and then like or shift or change form, and then it bounces back. And so like I see that in my kids through this whole lifestyle. Like when the pressure came, they started to shift and change, and then all of a sudden they're like boing. They just
Yep.
they bounce back and they just go with the flow. So yeah, that's kind of when I think of that analogy, that's kind of what I thought about.
And I think that we can, in respect to kids, they are probably always the golf balls. I don't think I've ever seen a kid who just kind of splats. They're really good at being that golf ball and being really flexible, really kind of just continuing to bounce. But I think sometimes as military spouses, right, we kind of sit here and we're like, I know that there were many times where I sat there and was like, if somebody tells me to be a golf ball again, I'm going to throw golf balls. Like, I was like, I don't want to be a golf ball. I don't want to have to keep bouncing. And I think that I'm seeing it in my house right now with this change and in this move and in this process. I get the moments where they're like, I don't want to move. I don't want to do this, right? And
Yeah.
then 10 minutes later or another day or two later, they're kind of like, so tell me about the new house. Tell me about this, right? And they're kind of this like bouncing back and forth because they're kind of they're in that squish point. And we all kind of sit there, and I know I've looked at my husband and I'm like, I don't want to pack again. If I hear another box, I'm gonna freak. Like, I don't want to do this. But I think that as much as the analogy might drive us insane, especially when we're in the midst of that pressure moment, like you're saying, and we feel it, we're trying to kind of conform with it, we're trying to work with it, and we're in the midst of, we're like, when does this bounce? Like, when does this come back? Like, relieve the pressure for me because I'm over it. We need to hear it. We need to hear that statement of of being the golf ball and continuing to bounce back, because no matter how hard it gets, it can be done. We've watched others do it. We've watched others go through it. And eventually we know that it's going to be a great opportunity, right? As I look at my own kids, I'm like, guys, this is going to be super fun, right? Like, this move is going to be super cool. It's a really awesome house. Like, I can show them all the glitz and glam of it. But until we're in that new house, we're in that new place, and they've had to say the goodbyes and go through the hardships, they can't fully accept the bounce back yet. And so I guess, what is your opinion or your thoughts on how do we maintain our golf ball status while trying to help them still be golf balls? Like, how do we keep our sanity and keep strong in our own space when we're watching the kids, in some essences, just throw the biggest tantrum and collapsing in front of us?
That's such a good question. And as you're talking, it just reminded me of choices. And we as spouses, we have a choice. We chose to be with our service member, whether it was we married into it, or we worked together in the relationship to choose to enlist, or not enlist, but the officer realm, like whatever route you guys took. And so us spouses, like, we have a choice. And so, like, I understand when you say, I don't want to bounce back anymore, because it was my choice to do it, and I just, sometimes I don't want to do it. Yeah. So then I think of our kids, and I'm like, they never had a choice.
Right.
And so they just have to bounce back. They can't, it's like, that's all they know. It's like, okay, change, and here we go again, and change, and here we go again. And so honestly, I don't know if I have any good advice, or remembering anything that what I did with my own kids, with how I helped them, because honestly, they helped me. And I would watch when I'm in my pity party and I'm struggling through another move and losing friends, and having to pack up everything, like, say, all the memories just getting boxed up again. And I'm all in my feels, and I see them get sad, but then I saw them just like go with it. And they just went with the flow better than I did. And so I would honestly look at them and learn from my kids. So, I'm sorry, I can't really tell you anything.
No, but I think that's honest. Like, how many times have we, even just as a mom, where we're like fully collapsing, feeling like awful moms, or we feel like we've done wrong today, or we're not the best mom in the world that day. And all it takes is them walking up and give us a hug, or saying, I love you, Mom. And you're like, okay, I can conquer the world today, right? And so sometimes we do have to stop. And you know what? I was told this once, is the question of, like, instead of asking yourself what you can teach your kids, ask yourself what your kids can teach you. And it was huge when I stopped and I looked around, and I think I was in the middle of homeschooling when somebody told me this, and I was like, that's huge, because, like, I can teach them what I know, right? But if I don't stop to go, what do you have for me? Like, what do you want to learn? What do you have to share with me? Like, they're really super smart things. Like, they're little sponges. They hear, they listen, they learn. Like, they are just, I have to give the kids props. Like, they're really incredible creatures. Like, that we created awesome things. Like,
yeah.
And And I don't think we give the kids enough credit, because as much as we're sitting here down, or maybe we are the stronger one in the moment and we're just kind of going, I don't know how to do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at the kids and they're like, I don't think they know either. They're just rolling with it, right? Doing the best that they can too.
Yeah.
And I've always looked at it and I've said, I've always prayed and I'm like, just don't let us all lose it at the same time. Like, just please don't all lose it at the same time, right? You know
Yeah.
what? You guys can have a weekday and I will be strong, and there will be another day where, you know what? Mom's not got it, but I know others do. So we all kind of, go back and forth. But something that really helped me stay strong was talking and communicating with my husband,
Mm.
because I have to look at it and go, you know what? We decided this. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't just him, it wasn't just me, it was a unanimous joint venture. We chose to do life together, not just military, not just a single chapter. Like, we chose life together.
Mm.
And so I used to communicate super hard with him over, like, Ab's just losing it. I don't know what to do. And just that statement of, she's losing it and I don't know what to do, was enough for me to go, okay, I can do this, right? Like, it was just the conversation, the person to vent to, the person to just be like, I don't know if I necessarily need a fix. I just need somebody else to know that I don't know what we're doing, but we're surviving here. Like, we're making it. And so that was something that really, really helped all through any and all of our transitions, was talking with Chris. And because I saw the kids more than he did, obviously, because of him being busy, and I'm home with them. So I had to communicate. I had to tell him, hey, she's not okay, or this one's not having a struggle bus moment, or this one is super on board. We need to keep pushing with this thought process, right? Like, keep rolling with it. And he would just come right in and swoop in right where it was, and just, he'd either go with the great moment or see how he can maybe fluff the not so great moment and continue to help. But it was understanding that I'm not alone, so I can support them by understanding that I don't have to do it alone. I know that he's busy and he's maybe not always there, but it doesn't mean he can't listen to me and be that vent, so that I can then continue to be that person.
I agree with that. I mean, yes, I can, and I can see, I mean, that's in life in general, right? Like, communication and keeping that open with your spouse for sure. And I don't know, like, we just had an episode about our kids and their reaction with their dad. And so I'm going to assume that if Abby or the kids were struggling with something, it was not Chris that they went to.
Right.
It was you. And same, kind of the same thing in our house. And especially more in the recent years, now that Olivia is like a teenager. and and relationships have just shifted a little bit. She was daddy's girl when she was little, and now that she's getting older, she's kind of leaning towards mom a little bit more. And so with the changes in the military, I mean, they're all for and so they bounced so easy, like, especially the big ones, like coming back from Germany, like everybody was ready. Going to Germany, like it was sad at first, and then but everybody was sad, and then we all got excited. So we were all like unified in our own kind of feelings as a family. And but now that the kids are getting older, and this isn't necessarily in the military, this is just life, all the changes that are happening with the kids now that they're getting older, the hormonal changes,
Mm-hmm.
uh, like school, like there's a big controversy in our school district, that like the kids are being affected by, but they have no choice within the matter. And so again, it's like one of those, like, they have to either bounce or get squashed, you know, they have to be resilient or and go with the flow with it. But they sometimes I don't see them, like, they're just in a funk and they don't understand what's going on. And I will say, and I'll give an example for Olivia because she's my oldest, and I give a lot of examples with her because she's the oldest and because she's going through the most changes. And so her hormones are like up and down. And I mean, she tells me, Mom, like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what I feel, but I just feel sad or I just feel off or whatever it is at that time. And the biggest thing that I've done in these moments, I'll put the military aside, but in life moments is on I listen to her because obviously she's communicating with me something that's she's going through. And I don't ever want to like go, oh, okay, you'll be fine. And then like brush it off. Like that's not allowing her to feel validated. And so I listen to her and honestly, I just give her a hug. I I notice that if I do those two things, then 5-10 minutes and she is better. Not necessarily that she's still not feeling those things, but I can see like the weight lift. I can see that she can manage it a little better. Um, and and then with the younger kids, you know, they talk about, oh, you know, there's some teachers leaving next year and they see it. And so again, like they're talking and I just again, I listen. And with them, with certain that specific topic, I ask questions. How the, you know, what is it? Does that make you sad? How does it make you feel? You know, like, because they're still trying to manage emotions. They don't quite understand. So I'm trying to get them to understand and bring that out. So,
Right.
but yeah, with life stuff, I find at least right now what is working with my family and my kids is I'm trying to be a better listener. I cannot just, especially a teenager and stuff, you know this, you can't just, well, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this, because they're going to go, oh, no, mom knows nothing, and turn right back around and shut down.
Right. And I think that's something I think you brought up a great thing we forget to do is listen, like actively listen to their thoughts, their concerns. Like they're coming to you for a reason. Like they're not just sitting in the corner dealing with it on their own. Like they're coming to you for a reason. And I love that, like you give that physical touch of a hug. And I notice like I will make sure to be even more cognizant and be like, okay, I need to take this one out for like mommy time, right?
Mhm.
So like Eli's been feeling a little weird. He's been a little like nasty lately. And I'm kind of like, all right, well, bad Eli is not, I'm not a fan of this one. Like my sweet Eli is purple minioning and I need to figure out why. And so I'll ask him, I'm like, what's going on, buddy? He's like, nothing. And I'm like, okay, how about you and I go out for a little date today? Or let's go spend some time together. And sometimes in the midst, we forget, like, okay, well, I got to list this big, deep, and I've got to get here and here and all these appointments, and you're doing all these things, which is great. But you are their center of the world. And sometimes they just need the center to stop moving. And they want to feel like they're seen in the midst of all this, right? Like they still want to feel like a priority of yours. They still want to feel like they matter to you, you know? And so like that's something that like my big kids now they can understand and will vocalize a little bit better of like, hey, can we go to the store? Or can you take me here? And they understand that like I pick up that trigger of like, okay, you need just us time. You know, like I just took Jackson to go get track shoes yesterday. He's asked me 3 times. I'm like, yes, bud, I promise I'll go see. And he's asking me, not my husband, because he knows that I run. That is something that I do. And he knows that, like, yeah, dad can come with or whatever, but like, he's looking for my input. He wants me to answer the questions. And so I'm like, okay, get in the car. We're going to get your track shoes tomorrow. And he was like, okay. And he like tried on different ones. It was just, and it wasn't even long. It was like, I think we were in the shoe store for 30 minutes. And half of that time was his shoes and half was me picking out a pair of pink ones. Like, I was like sitting here, I'm like, do you like these pink ones or these pink ones? He's like, they're pink. And I was like, I know, which one do you like? And he was like, which one do you like? And I was like, okay, this is not, you're not helpful. But it was just the idea of amidst the chaos, letting them know, like, I see you, I feel you, I get it. And I can see him already. Like just today, he was walking with a different stance, working more, more excited. And I can see that time allows them to know, you know what, I'm not going to be left. I'm not going to be.
Yeah. And that brought up a thought too. And it's more for us parents, and something that I've been seeing a lot in my household. Obviously, you just said you've seen it. So kids are smart. People, and not just kids, like people in general, are going to know, okay, if I have this problem, I know who to go to, right? And so we have to trust that our kids are reading the room and reading the relationship on, okay, I have this issue or this need, and mom is the one I need to go to for that. And if they go to dad, then yeah, so then they go to dad because they feel that dad is the one that can fill that in them. So as parents, and I'm speaking from experience here in a little bit, because my and I feel bad, but my husband has been like, well, why did she talk to you? And I go, well, it's I think it's because I never really communicated this with him, but it's because I listen. And so, especially for Olivia, like on the things that she's venting about and the things that she's frustrated about, she doesn't want a solution. And of course, that's such a woman thing anyways, right? Like, we don't want solutions. We want somebody to just be there so we can just pour it out and listen, and then we can breathe and go, okay, we can do it, right? And so, it's because I listen, but the track record from my husband, and it's not a bad thing, but he is a fixer, and that is such a man thing. And she doesn't want the fix at that moment. If she did, she would go to him. And so I would encourage all of you parents to not be jealous of the other if your kid goes to your spouse in those moments, or it could be even just it could be a phase. Like, this is a phase for us. It's been, gosh, a year and a half now that she's been really attracted to mom. And so I just take, like, you guys are a team. You guys are one. And it takes a team and takes different kind of body parts to be one body. And right. And so just work together in it. I encourage you guys to work together. Don't fight each other because of it.
Yeah. And it's funny because I see that often with, like, Chris will ask me, he's like, well, why do they come to you? Like, why does Abby continue to just want to talk to you about it? And I was like, well, it's a girl thing, first off. And I just let her go. I just let her have the conversation on her own. And like, like yesterday, she kept going on and on and on about how she's like, I got to get to my friend Manny's house. I got to go. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what death-defying thing is happening right now, but I can only go so fast. You need to wait a minute, right? And she was like, oh, sorry. Yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like, it took her down a notch. But Chris will ask me, and I'm like, first off, just the same thing that you will come to me about. And you're like, well, talk to me about it. And I'm like, well, I don't need a fix. I just need to vent, right? And I'm like, I tell you that same thing. I was like, you have to ask Abby, do you need a fix or do you need a vent? They know who to come to just to pour their little hearts out and get a hug and walk away. Versus my husband, who's gonna be like full gear, ready to go, and who are we kicking rear on? Like, like he is full steam ahead. Yes. And I was like, they don't always need full steam ahead. Sometimes they just need big burly arms that are going to be a big cuddle bear and love them. They don't always need the entire cavalry going out with them. Like they're not ready for that yet. Like when they're ready, they'll let you know. But until then, hold off, And my kids, if they want humor, if they need somebody to like lighten the mood, they'll go to their dad, or they'll make the conversation. Like this is one thing I've noticed. They'll make sure that the conversation happens when both of us are in the room, because they know they can vent and they'll get heard, but they know that their dad doesn't know all the information yet. Like I know the nitty gritty of this person is like in this one, and they're related to that one, and I know the backstory. And my kids will purposely do it in front of their dad, or at least I feel like it's purposely. And he will be like, "So who's what?" And he's trying to make the connections, and so then it lightens the mood, and so they know what they want. They don't necessarily know how to say it. And so sometimes they'll come for the hug because they know mom will give you the love. I'm not going to necessarily give you the humor. I'll give you the hug and I'll give you the fix if you want it. Like I'll give you a hug and an advice if that's what you want. If you want humor, go talk to your dad. If you want like a bigger fix than what I've got capability wise, ask your dad. He'll pull out every stop and make it all happen for you. And if you want somebody who's impartial, who's not going to say a single thing, go talk to your grandfather. Like he will not tell a single soul what you just said. Like he is great about that. And so in my house, that's what the really great part is like they get all three dynamics in the house. Is like, well, if I don't want to get in trouble, I know who to call. And if I want help and love, I'll get it here. And if I want humor and a full cavalry, I'll go over here. Like they know who to talk to. But I think to put it all together is that some days the concept of being that golf ball is really hard. It's hard for us adults, and it's probably even harder for those kids. But they keep bouncing, and so do we. You get used to it. I mean, when I left the military, I was like, let's keep going. Like it was just so part of who we are. The military is a different breed. I will say that. We are all a different breed. We are cut a little bit differently than the rest of the world. And so you can do it. First and foremost, you can be their rock and their support. You can be that person. You can not be okay with the situation and still keep rolling. But find somebody to listen to. Both if you are being the one conversated with, maybe you need to conversate to somebody else. That communication point is key. And then you know what? Physical touch can make the world a better place. Like it truly can. Give a hug, receive a hug, be in a presence of somebody else. Like you can handle it all. And so do these kids, that sometimes it's not ideal, but they keep bouncing. And we just get to be the one who keeps helping them to bounce. And I always look at it, I'm like, it's a true honor to be their mom and watch them continue to bounce back during every single thing that they go through. My husband, my kids, all of us. And especially those kids, because then I get to look at them go out into the real world and be like, you've got this. And I know without a shadow of a doubt, they've got all the tools ready to go for them. So I think that resiliency is one of those things that so many of us have been told to just keep doing. But how do we keep doing it is a little bit different. And it's a little hard to kind of put a finger to, kind of put it all together. And I will thank my husband for my least liked analogy. But yeah, my loved analogy of all of the military times. And so I hope that this can help other parents kind of understand their kids. I hope that it opens that conversation, and you kind of better understand them, how to support them during turbulent times, during changing times, but also during during everyday life. Like these kids are still dealing with friendships and relationships and life and school and all the things, even without a change involved. Like they're still dealing with it. So how do we support them so that they can be resilient in that situation? So make sure you keep an eye out following the podcast as a whole, and be on the lookout for more to come, because these are some really awesome conversations we have had going on. So I don't want you to miss out on any of them, and be on the lookout. So we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks for being here.